So it's, just in life, those ups and downs in life sometimes will teach you. And so when you interact with people, I think it just gives you a little more compassion maybe towards them, because you can literally relate to what they've gone through.
That reminded me as to what she did for her husband, to look back at my wife and say, what is she doing for me? And so, yeah, those little efforts of compassion can last a lifetime, where it can come back on someone and remind them, hey, like, there are people watching out for you.
I had cancer. But in my mind, I wanted to live a life where people could see that it's okay to go through hardships and adversity.
I tell myself, that's not why I do things. I don't represent insurance companies. I represent people. I don't represent big corporations. I represent people. And so when I go to work, I don't say, this is just my job. I almost feel like it's a calling. I'm Isaiah Jerez here on Turning Point's Covenant of Justice, here with John Pantages. Today we're going to walk through what it means to not have fear, to recognize that the Lord is there with us in good times and bad times, and what type of legacy we want to leave for our children. John, thank you for coming on today. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Jonathan, so you were a leader at your church, and that's what brought you out here to Vegas. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was a director of ministry, so I handled just overseeing all the different ministries of the church. And then I took on a role later on, really congregational care, which is really what my passion is, just checking on people, visiting people, calling people on the phone, things like that, just to check up on them, make sure they're all good. So
boots on the ground, going door to door, making sure everybody's healthy, making sure if anybody needs anything, hey, we're here to help you.
Absolutely. That was the name of the game. It's who I am really as a person. So it was the perfect fit in that sense, doing that. That part didn't even feel like a job. I mean, because it was just what I so naturally do anyway. Outside of that, I still do that, even though I don't work there anymore. This is just part of what I do. So,
yeah. In my church, every man and every woman is assigned a few families, and that is their goal: is to get to really know this person. What are their needs? What are their likes? And let's focus on building a community and making sure that we're there for them when they need us, and what are their talents as well, so that if there's other need by anybody else, then they can go ahead and come and help other people. And
yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's something that a lot of churches have gotten away from. The focus has changed just to other priorities or whatever, and I think we tend to forget that it's really all about people. And so it really should be just part of what we constantly do, just check in on each other. And, I think of, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, you really are. You're your sister's keeper. You should be checking on people to make sure they're good. I'd rather hear, yeah, I'm good over and over, 99 times, but on that 100th time hear, no, I'm not good, and be able to help do something about it, as opposed to never ask and then find out that they weren't good all along. So it's just it's what's in my DNA. I think my mom was always checking on other people, so I think it just kind of trickled down, to me, to us. But yeah, something I'm passionate about. Yeah. So, especially since I've been in a position where you've needed help, or you've been in positions where, you've been in a struggle in life or whatever, and you're like, where is everybody? And so that's something I kind of vowed as I've gone through certain situations in life, that it's like I would, at least for the people that I could impact, family, friends, people that are closer to, that never wanted anybody to be in a position where they were like that, where it's like, where is everybody? At least one person would be checking. So that's,
Yeah, I served a mission for 2 years in Chile, Santiago. And one of their main focuses, everybody that we approached, we needed to approach as if they needed something. Right? Because we want to be there for them. And if we look to how we can help them, right? Instead of going to someone and saying, how can I help you? Recognizing what they needed. Yeah. And it got to the point of, whatever it was, right? If it was a guy that was looking for nails to build a house, right? We'd go down and start helping him find nails, right? To approach him, not necessarily with the point of, hey, how can I help you? But seeing what they need and jumping in, just being able to be there and help them.
Yeah, meeting people where they're at with what they need. And I think for me, I've found that, when you've gone through things in life, when you've faced adversity, you're able to also relate to people differently. You care for people differently. Anytime I come across, being a cancer survivor now, anytime I come across someone that's dealing with cancer or has dealt with cancer and still struggles. I still struggle sometimes with that mindset, with that, it could come back. What if it comes back? All of that. And it's not, I don't think it's something that I stress over, but every once in a while the enemy will try and place those thoughts in your head and, what if it comes back? So when you're talking to someone, you can relate, you can pray for them even differently because you're praying from a place of someone who understands the pain, the fear, whatever, even the physical suffering, the side effects or whatever. So it's, just in life, those ups and downs in life sometimes will teach you. And so when you interact with people, I think it just gives you a little more compassion maybe towards them because you can literally relate to what they've gone through. So I think it's...
Yeah, having that empathy, that direct
that's the word I was looking for.
Correlation
Yes.
with someone to be there for them. And that's the amazing thing about the Lord is he went below everything that anybody has ever gone through.
Absolutely.
To be able to recognize exactly what we've done, the power of the atonement for him to comfort and to console us, and then for the opportunity to be a disciple, to then do that for someone and to help turn them, hey, you can look to me, I can help you through this, but also you can look towards the Lord Jesus Christ for help.
And I think it's so important because, okay, we have our faith in God. We place our faith in Jesus, but he's not physically in this room with us. And so sometimes when you're going through those times in life where you're lonely, where you're tired, where you're burned out, where you're scared, whatever it happens to be, it's not this physical Jesus there for you that you can, we can talk to him through prayer or whatever, but you don't always hear back. You can hear through his word as you're reading scriptures or whatever, but to actually get an answer right there, right now. And sometimes I've learned that he puts people in our lives that we can talk to, that we can lean on in those tough times that are representative of him in a sense. The hug they give reflects his love. And we feel that at that moment when you really need a hug from someone, you're really feeling scared, feeling lonely, whatever it happens to be. And again, I think it just goes back to why I'm so passionate about that, because I've been there. You know what it's like to be like, wow, God, are you there right now when you're suffering with cancer? And I know deep down inside he is, but it's like he's not standing right there. So where is everybody? So to have that is so important, I think.
And kind of like what you're talking about, even though it's not your specific calling right now, where you find the time and make the effort to go out and visit people.
Yeah.
To be there for them and to show your compassion and to help direct their faith.
Yeah. And, it's such a different society. I see sometimes you drive home and everybody drives home and pulls into their garages and closes the door and goes inside to their own little world till the next day. And then you just kind of do the same thing over and over. And, when I was a kid, you saw everybody, you knew all the neighbors. And so society has changed, but it's also become easier to touch bases with people because maybe even if you don't visit them, you can shoot them a quick text. You can shoot them an Instagram message. It's so much easier nowadays to connect, at least at some level. And so it's, it's so simple now to actually just do that and reach more people and just, hey, just thinking about you, hope everything's okay. And, sometimes people are like, yeah, I'm okay. It's like, is that a good okay? Or is that I'm struggling okay?
And what does that mean? Yeah.
What does that mean? Right. And strike a little conversation just to try and dig a little deeper and not just gloss over it. But yeah, I'm really passionate about that just because, again, I've been there. I know what it's like to have those moments where it's just like, okay, I just need someone to reach out. So I know you're there, Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because I found it comes sometimes from the most unexpected sources. And that's what really bolsters my faith, I think, in the sense that sometimes the people you think would be there weren't there. And it's not that they're bad life, we all have lives, we all have our own struggles and things, and sometimes those people weren't there, but when it comes from someone that you don't even expect, or someone who's almost a stranger that you barely know, or, whatever, that's when it's like, wow, okay, all right, I see what you're doing there, God, It wasn't who you would expect. It came from a complete stranger. So it was almost like, okay, it's easy to say, well, I expect you to be there. You're supposed to be there, but when they're not, and some stranger comes and visits you at the hospital or someone you barely know, it's like, whoa, okay, God, you sent someone to remind me that I'll find someone to go comfort, to go pray with you, to go be a friend, whatever. So it just blows my mind sometimes the way God works. So.
And those impressions can last a long time. When I was serving my mission, this was back in 2005, I was in an area, and there was in Chile, so a very rural area, but there was a leader of quite a big area over there, and he was very busy in his profession, very busy in the service, and very busy with his family, where he didn't have time to really study the Word of God like he would have hoped. And I remember his wife telling me that she read to him the scriptures in the morning time when he's eating, when he's getting ready. She would read to him. And now I'm in a position in my life where I'm in the same situation, where I'm leading a congregation. I've got my own business. I've got 5 kids at home. I try to coach a mountain bike team, and I'm not in the Word as I would like to be. But yet my wife is there supporting me, and all of a sudden I got it through Facebook, right? The same woman that I had met on my mission, she starts sending me a message. And that came to me, that reminded me as to what she did for her husband, to look back at my wife and say, what is she doing for me? And so, yeah, those little efforts of compassion can last a lifetime, where it can come back on someone and remind them, hey, like, there are people watching out for you. The Lord has your best interest in mind.
Yeah, that it never ceases to amaze me how those seeds that you plant sometimes years back turn around and come back to, grows into a tree. It bears fruit that comes back to maybe not literally feed you, but in some cases literally provide for you. There were things, ever since I was a small kid, my mom and dad always taught us to give. And we didn't have a whole lot, but give of what you have. Your little that you had was still so much more when you visit some of the impoverished countries around the world, or sometimes even in our own cities. There's areas where people just don't have, and we think we don't have anything, and yet we're so blessed with what we have. And so they always taught us just to give. And, so that's something that stuck with me, and just trying to help other people. And it's just so amazing that when we hit our low point a couple of years ago, literally financially, literally physically, with me battling cancer and everything. And we're in a city that we really didn't know anybody yet. Our life was all in California for so many years. Then all of a sudden uprooted to a new city, and boom, you're hit with this bombshell. You have cancer, and who's around? And to see the fruit that you planted years back come back to help you. And, it was a humbling experience too, because I don't want to say it was pride, but maybe it was pride, in the sense that, oh no, we give, we help. And all of a sudden I'm in a position, I couldn't walk for 7-8 months.
And when you found out you had cancer, it was stage 4 cancer?
Yeah.
And what kind of cancer was it?
It's melanoma. So I cut my foot back in California in our swimming pool, on a little pebble in the pool, or whatever, a little rock that was on there as I was walking, and just sliced it, and no big deal, cut my foot. And it all healed up. Everything was fine. And ironically, we came to Vegas a while later, and in the shower, it's like, they have the tile showers in a lot of cases, but back then they had the plastic, kind of tubs, and somebody dropped something or something. There's a little like piece sticking up there, it's like gouged, and it recut my foot. I don't know if it was the same spot exactly or whatever, but time went on, and one day I was working. I was managing an event venue, and so we were always on our feet. So you're used to your feet being sore, your legs were sore. They were always sore because you were always on your feet. But I felt something just different. I was just like, man, this is bothering me. So I went home, and literally, if you look at your palm, I had a little tiny cut like right here on my foot, bottom of my foot. But I literally had to lift up onto the counter and look in the mirror to see anything, because it's hard to twist your foot like that. So and I saw just like a little brown spot, and it looked like a cut. So didn't think of anything of it, and time went by, and all of a sudden it's like my foot was still bothering me. So it started to open up little by little, and still didn't go to the doctor, being a stubborn man. It's like, it's just a cut, it'll heal up, no big deal. but I was always on my feet, so I'm always mashing it, whatever. Well, to make a long story short, by the time they really started to dig in deeper to what was happening, it was like a quarter-sized, my daughter used to call it the meatball, that started growing out of the bottom of my foot. Literally, if this is my foot, about this big. And so they kept testing it, and it's like, oh, you're diabetic, whatever. No, I'm not diabetic. They kept testing me, nothing. And finally, one doctor was like, you know what? I think this is melanoma. I'm going to have you tested. So he started doing some literal deeper testing and digging in and pulling, samples from it and everything. And boy, that was like a 6-7 month process. And finally, in December, they told me I had melanoma, and it was such an odd experience.
December of what year?
December 26th, the day after Christmas. Merry Christmas. 2018.
Okay.
So I went most of 2018 with this thing growing out of the bottom of my foot. So it was so interesting because I remember when he said it, I felt relief, because up to that point it was like, what do I have? What do I have? What do I have? Okay, it's probably cancer. It's probably cancer. If this is not cancer, what is it? And so I literally felt relief. Okay, this is what I'm fighting.
Yeah, you're the first person to tell me you found relief when you had stage 4 cancer.
Yeah.
It's
it's crazy because I literally felt, okay, I can breathe now. I know what I'm up against, because I had this unknown opponent that I was fighting. How do you fight what you don't know what you're fighting? And so it's like, okay, it's cancer. Now we can at least develop a plan to deal with it because we know what it is. Because if it's not cancer, what's wrong with me? Like, why is this thing growing out of the bottom of my foot? What in the world is it? So, our medical system can move so slow sometimes, and it's tough. I've learned you have to be an advocate for yourself. You have to push for sure, because it'll move so slow. And so by the time they did the surgery, I had a few little minor procedures just to check things or whatever. But it was March of 2019 where they finally did a surgery to remove that. But right before they took me in, they did another scan, and they found that it had moved up my leg to my groin area. So they ended up cutting me about that long from down my leg here up to my stomach and up and over to rip out a bunch of dirty lymph nodes that had gotten cancer. So it had spread up my leg already that quickly. So the doctor said, you might have been carrying this around for 10 years, but once it activates, it just moves fast. Mm. So they ripped that out of me. I couldn't walk for, like I said, it was about 9 months or so. Had to have my kids, literally, and it's back to that point where, no, I'm the giver. I'm the one that's helping you when you fall down. And all of a sudden I found myself having to humble myself and say, okay, yeah, I'll take that help. We had a few people that blessed us with money, and it felt so odd because we're the ones that do that. And now I found myself in a position where it's like, wow, yeah, I really do need this, Thank God.
Rely on your kids, the ones that you raised.
Yeah, my wife literally had to lift me up. I have pictures of my son that's filming here where he's helping me up and down the stairs. We lived on the second floor of some condos, so I literally had to grab the rails and on one foot hop up the stairs. And so I have pictures of him helping me with my stuff, or I have pictures of my daughter pushing me in a wheelchair, at my appointments and things like that. And it was a humbling experience because as a man, okay, I'm supposed to be the strong one. I'm supposed to be providing. My wife is helping me in and out of the tub and having to, wash me down and stuff, which is like, okay, that's cool. But I'm supposed to take my own showers, it's like, yeah. So it was really quite the experience. And then just, to have people, it was humbling, but yet it was like, okay, God, faith-wise, it's like, there's so much talk about faith.
Yeah, let me before you get into that, talking about, you being there for other people and you being a representative of the Lord showing up on people's doorsteps and the people seeing the Lord through you. And now as a father receiving that help from your children and from your wife and seeing the Lord come out through them, that must have been such a special experience, even though you're struggling through something so tough, to see that divine power just through people that you love so much.
Yeah, to have them rally around and knowing that this was probably impacting them more than it was impacting me. I was dealing with pain, of course, but in my mind, my concern was them because, okay, stage 4 is no joke, had to go through treatments and stuff, which we can get into later or whatever. But to have that in your mind, it's like, boy, if it's not God's will for me to live, what's going to happen? Like, that was my fear, not for me. It was like, in fact, people ask me later, well, how did you survive that? So I didn't tell hardly anybody. There was a very small circle of people that actually knew what I was going through. I wore a boot for a while before the surgeries. And then after the boot, I was on a knee scooter or I was on crutches or whatever to get around. I was at the church. I was very present in the church once the initial surgeries took place, and I healed up, from here, my groin area and all that. But people saw me, but they didn't know what was going on except for a small group of people. And later they found out, after it was all over with, like a year later, maybe even longer, is when they found out. And people were like, oh my God, I thought you just busted up your ankle or your leg and you had surgery. I was like, no, I had cancer. But in my mind, I wanted to live a life where people could see that it's okay to go through hardships and adversity. And sure, I had my moments of being bitter and being angry or, whatever. Ask my kids, they'll tell you, I wasn't always a saint. But for the most part, to live in a way where you could still smile, you could still, and then people would look at you and go like, whoa, you can go through adversity and still put a smile on your face. You can go through an adversity and maybe you're not happy every moment, but you can still have joy deep down inside. And that's what I wanted people to see, that, yeah, I didn't necessarily look like everything I had gone through. And so didn't share that. And as people found out, it was like, wow. But my mindset from the get-go was, if I die, I win. I know where I'm going. I'm cool with that. My concern is my family, but I'm good. Don't have to go to work the next day. Don't have the bills to pay. I know where I'm going. I'm cool with that. And if I survive, I win. So either way, I win. So it was just like, okay, let's go. Let's just battle this thing, and whatever happens, I win.
But like you said, it was difficult in the moment at times. And I kind of want to ask you about that, because we have the knowledge and the intellect can tell us, hey, when these trials come, because they will come, right? This is the way that you focus. You look towards the Lord. But it can be difficult when you're in that moment where you're dealing with all this adversity.
Absolutely. And I think that's the part where, again, we it's very easy to say, oh yeah, I trust in Jesus. I trust in God. And it's easy to say that when everything's going okay. Oh yeah, faith, sure. Got the bumper sticker, you got the cross around your neck, you got all the signs of faith. I'm good, I trust in God. But then you find out when your back's up against the wall, really how much faith you have in God. And that's what I found. That's when faith is really tested. Think about biblical stories of 3 Hebrew boys, and it's like being thrown into a fiery furnace. Before that, it was all good. Oh yeah, we're not going to bow down. We're not going to bow down. But then when they say we're throwing you into this fiery furnace, the tune tends to change, because I think of Peter. Peter walking with Jesus, seeing the miracles, being right there with him. And then when push came to shove, what did he do? He ran. And it's like, it's really easy to bash Peter because he ran and all that, but
he walked on water. And then later on, right?
Right. It's like, and it's really the
Yeah.
true journey. Sometimes I grew up in a church environment where it was almost hyper spiritual. Everything was just, you had to portray this sense of spirituality. And the reality is you fall down and we get back up. We stumble, we fall. I mean, Peter was a wreck when you look at Peter's life, chopping people's ears off, and he's cussing and cutting people's ears. He was a violent man, And yet when he ran off, Jesus chases him down. And then he builds a church on his back. It's like him, that loser. But it was a reminder. It's like, no, that really is faith. It's the ups and downs. It's the stumbling and the rising back up and the stumbling. And that really is faith, that when you fall down, you know you have a Savior to look to lift you back up, or a Savior that when you get back up on your own, maybe not on your own completely, but in the sense that, okay, you get back up, you dust yourself out, but you know that he's there to forgive you from all that. And so I think that in the middle of all that is clearly, besides my mom passing away, the biggest test of my faith, because now it's almost like, okay, do you still trust me with cancer? Do you still trust me not knowing how long you're going to live? Even now, I would say honestly, now it's a bigger battle because I beat it, was healed from it, but there's still the mind game of what if it comes back?
Stage 4, right? A huge
Yeah.
chance that it's going to come back.
Absolutely.
And so
The statistics show that
yeah.
there's a better than not chance that it probably does come back.
But if you dwell on that, dwell on the possibility of that coming back versus focusing on the time that you have with your children, with your loved ones, with the opportunity to serve in the church.
And that's the biggest game changer for me. I think I did a video one time where I simply said, maybe I didn't say it exactly this way, but cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it woke me up to the fact that we're not going to be here on this earth forever. Yeah, the Bible says that life is like a mist, like a vapor, just so quick. And when you really realize that when you face death, every single day that I wake up, I'm reminded that it's a bonus day, because I could have been dead 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Maybe I should have been dead. And it changes your perspective on life, because you realize we really are going to die someday. We're not going to be here forever. What am I doing with that time? Am I living it out? And again, I'm far from perfect, but am I angry about everything? Am I self-centered and only focused on myself? Or is it, how can I impact anybody and everybody I come into contact with on a daily basis? Because, we think about cancer, but I mean, you know this better than I do. It's like there's people driving their cars out of parking lots every day that aren't making it home.
Yeah, they're deadly weapons, right? People are getting behind a wheel and they're handling these deadly weapons and looking at their cell phone or doing their makeup or looking at the radio, right? And putting other people's lives at risk. But I want to touch on what you're talking about that perspective of, okay, I've got a finite time here on earth. And what am I going to do with it? And it makes me think about a couple of things. Number one, my grandpa, who died with very little economically. And when he died, when he was getting ready to die, he told us, he says, my chest of gold is my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he left us with, was that importance of what it means to be a member of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And now I look at myself and I look at what can I leave my children. And when I first started practicing law, it was economic success comes pretty easily with law, where I came to the point where, hey, I could work 20 hours a week, 15, 20 hours a week, spend a bunch of time playing, and I could support a very healthy lifestyle for my family. And it got to a point of saying, what am I really teaching my children? I'm not teaching them how to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so taking in that mortal perspective, saying, what am I going to leave my children? I want to teach them how to work hard. I want to teach them what will happen if they apply themselves. And so now you looking at that finite time, that, having that gift of mortality, give the vision of mortality, what are you looking to be able to leave for your children?
That's a good question. And I think because now later in life, I've learned to focus a little bit more on myself, to develop, to be able to do better in life in general. I've learned things in the last 5 years or so that I didn't know before when it came to finances, when it came to real estate, when it came to investing, things like that. So trying to fast track that to be able to leave them something in that sense. But also when it boils down to it, it's like, there's that old saying that there's no U-Haul following the hearse to your grave. So we're all going to go in that grave naked, penniless, whatever, and that's it. So leaving them an inheritance, great. But leaving them with a mindset to care for others, to be compassionate to others, to lift others up, I think in some sense, if you can do both, that's awesome. But if I had to choose, I mean, money has ruined so many people, and it's, we know the Bible verse, the love of money. People say money is the root of all evil. It's not. It's that love of money that throws people off. And they say that money changes people. I don't think it changes people. It reveals people. Because if you're generous with the little bit that you had, when you're blessed with a lot, you're going to be generous. And when you're stingy with the little that you have, if you happen to have a lot, you're going to be stingy with that lot too. So it's teaching them that, there is a different way to live life. If you really look at, I struggle with this sometimes because I think the modern church in a lot of ways has painted a different Jesus from what you read about. I mean, this is a man that was compassionate. This is a man who sat with women that nobody wanted to sit with because the fact that she had gone through 4 or 5 husbands or whatever, and the guy she was living with now wasn't her husband, and here he took time to sit with her. And we got to be careful. Obviously, I'm not going to go looking for someone and let me go sit with them in the middle of the night or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But in the sense that the compassion he had was an example that the woman that was caught in the act of adultery kicks everybody out of the room and he stays there with her. What would TMZ say about that today? It's like, but so to teach them, it's like, man, those people that are sitting there in need of love, in need of compassion, in need of whatever, what are we here for? Can we meet that need? Can we fulfill a need? Can we be his hands, his feet, can we show love through a hug for someone who's struggling? That's the real legacy I want to leave them with. The financial is great, but so is the other side, Not everything can be fixed with money. Money certainly does help. Like I'm striving to get more for sure.
It's important without a doubt.
It definitely is important, makes life easier. But, there's plenty of money out there, people out there with so much money and they're miserable. You can tell, you can see it. And one of the greatest experiences I had when I went to Mexico with my wife one time and just going into the towns and seeing people's houses that were literally made of like mud or whatever type of material. And to see the kids happy and playing and laughing with nothing. A ball of tape that they're playing soccer with and they're laughing. And it really, back to that perspective, when you see sometimes how hard we work for a few more toys or how hard we work for another this, another that, better clothes, whatever. There's nothing wrong with having all that. But that perspective really does change when you see people in other conditions. And it changes when you've gone through something like I've gone through, where you have cancer and you realize, wow, life is so short. And do I want to spend all of my life just trying to accumulate a little bit more? Again, it's important. Money is important. But I can spend all my life accumulating, or I can spend my life accumulating, but also, how can I help you? Yeah. And that's my goal,
Yeah, my profession is so combative, and so many times I hear the other side just say, it's my job, I'm doing my job. And I tell myself, that's not why I do things. Mm-hmm. I don't represent insurance companies. I represent people. I don't represent big corporations. I represent people. And so when I go to work, I don't say, this is just my job. I almost feel like it's a calling.
Absolutely.
I have this education. The Lord's given me this opportunity. And the reason he's done it isn't so I can have a job. He's given me this stuff so I can help people. And yes, we can make money at it at the same time that we're helping people. And, trying to have that passion and instill that passion in my kids is one of my big goals in life, is to say, okay, find what you're passionate about, help people out, and the Lord will take care of the rest.
You're talking my language. I don't feel content. I don't feel happy if I'm not helping other people. And it's not just to deflect me taking care of my issues or my hang-ups or things. It's not that. I'm working on that too. But I can't. The person who's done me the most wrong in life, if I came across them lying in the street bleeding, I can't step around them and not help. So even more when it's someone that I love, that I care about, people in my circle that, I'm reminded of that story of the little boy on the beach that's throwing the starfish, I think, into the ocean, something to that effect. And someone's mocking him and saying, yeah, you can't save them all, or you're not doing any good or whatever. And I'm massacring the story, but he said something to the effect of, but to that one, it matters. To that one that he saved, it matters. And I think that's really the crux of it for me. It's like, okay, yeah, you can't save everybody, you can't help everybody. Not everybody wants help. That's the truth. Even the Bible says the poor you'll always have. Not everybody wants to work. Not everybody wants that better life or whatever. But for the ones that do, so if we can walk out of this life, if I die, I'll tell you a funny story actually with regards to, I told someone one time that if I got to the point where I thought I was on my way out and the doctors are saying, okay, you have a limited time left, I wasn't going to have a funeral service. I was like, I wasn't going to do it. It's like, no, I'm going to send out a message to everybody on social media. I'm going to call all my friends. I'm going to text everyone and say, let's get together before I die. Because I want to sit there. I want to hear the funny stories. I want to hear how I impacted you. I want to laugh at some of the dumb stuff we did when we were younger. I wanted to be there to hear it. And I think back to what you talked about, perspective. It's taught me to give people their flowers now, as they say. It's like, why wait? Like, celebrate people now that they're here on earth. I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk. I forget who it is that said, tell your friends you love them. Make it weird. Because it is weird to tell a friend, oh, I love you. It's like, yeah. Especially if maybe it's someone, a member of the opposite sex or whatever. It's different kinds of love. I don't love you in a romantic or a sexual way or anything like that, but just brotherly love.
Yeah, and part of it could be cultural as well. Right now my family and I have a special calling to go to a Spanish-speaking unit. And it's been wonderful going there because we've been able to communicate in different ways. Hugs and kisses, right? You don't see that in the general, American congregations because we're very uptight. And I'm not sure if uptight's the not necessary word, but
I want my personal space.
Space, right?
My space.
Yeah, keep my space. And so it's been a good thing for my family and for me and for my kids to have that, right? To have that kind of touch, that communication, kind of like we were talking about. Like, even though, it's awkward and it can be socially awkward to say, hey, I love you. Yeah. And, I care for you. And I'm going to give you a kiss on your cheek. Yeah. We can do that. And then it starts to feel comfortable and you start to feel other people and what you can do for other people. And I just want to end with something. Your favorite scripture. What is your favorite scripture?
Isaiah 41:10, and it's a little longer than the part I'll quote because the part that I'm quoting is the part that just meant so much to me or still means so much to me, but it says, fear not, for I am with you. And I always stop right there because that encapsulates everything. Don't be afraid. As I went through my battle, there were moments of fear, but generally speaking, I wasn't afraid. As I shared earlier, I wasn't afraid to die. I was more afraid of what would happen to my wife and kids and all of that. But I wasn't afraid to die. I knew where I was going if I died. But in the middle of all the battle, it's like, don't be afraid because I'm with you. And as long as he's with us through the ups and downs of life, it's easy to recognize that he's with us when everything is going right. But it's even more comforting to recognize that he's with you even when everything's going wrong. And, people say God is good and, oh, I'm so blessed because I got the job, I got the new car, I was pre-approved for the loan for the house and all that. Yes, you're blessed. But you're still blessed when the doctor says you have cancer. You're still blessed when you're going through a divorce. You're still blessed when you're going through, depression, whatever the things that life can throw at us. We're still blessed. I think that's a perspective that comes from overcoming, something like cancer. And I think my encouragement would be, for me, that was my aha moment. That was my wake up. That was my come to Jesus moment, if you want to call it that in that sense. But don't wait for that. People don't have to wait for that. You can start today and not have anything wrong with you, but start to realize that life is short. go through this life not being afraid because he's with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being able to share the story and have this conversation with you. It's been great.